Imagine you are gazing into the distance at a dusty land, bathed in the intense light of the sun rising above an endless desert. In the distance, tall towers ascend, massive walls loom, and an architectural spectacle shrouded in mystery unfolds. This is the realm of the legendary Babylonian civilization. The desert wind whispers ancient tales of capricious gods, famous kings, and gilded metropolises that once glimmered in the heart of Mesopotamia. In this epic documentary, we will journey together through millennia of history, witness Babylon's glorious rise, and behold its dramatic fall, carried along by forgotten voices and echoes of distant times. Right from the first strains of the dramatic music that accompanies this journey, we imagine a world of contrasts, a dazzling region between the waters of two mighty rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates, lush with vegetation, yet surrounded by arid and threatening expanses. In that part of the Near East, many millennia ago, people discovered the fertility of naturally irrigated land and learned to build enduring settlements, thus marking the beginning of a civilization that would influence the course of history. It is said that around 4,000 years before Christ, the first fortified villages appeared on these lands. Over many generations, small communities united, and culture flourished upon the foundations left by the Sumerians, the Akkadians, and other Semitic peoples. Yet Babylon's true emergence as a regional power is linked to events in the 19th and 18th centuries before Christ, when King Hammurabi imposed his authority and founded his reign. Envision the camera drifting above the city on a cool morning as the sun pours its rays over newly constructed walls. We see artisans and workers adorning buildings with intricate bas-reliefs depicting imposing deities and scenes of everyday life. We hear the hum of the marketplace, vendors shouting out wares of grain, clay, pottery, fine textiles, and even precious stones. Beyond this bustle rise sumptuous palaces, temples built in honor of the god Marduk, and a network of irrigation canals sustaining the intense cultivation of cereals and fruit. Although the city itself had gradually developed under Hammurabi's rule, Babylon became the capital of a prosperous and influential kingdom. Hammurabi, a visionary king and a skillful strategist, succeeded through diplomacy and successive conquests in extending his influence throughout Mesopotamia. He is celebrated for Hammurabi's Code, one of the oldest sets of written laws known to the world, which included fundamental principles of justice and social relations. Instead of imposing an arbitrary regime, this legal code provided a clear structure and explicitly prescribed punishments for various offenses, laying the foundations of a relatively orderly society in which responsibility and honor played a decisive role. This Hammurabi's Code was not merely a simple legal document, but a true cornerstone for Babylonian culture. Its laws divided society into distinct categories and outlined the relationships among them: nobles, free people, artisans, slaves. Each category had its own rights and obligations. For example, artisans were recognized for their skill, benefiting from royal court protection because the economic flourishing relied on trade in particularly valuable goods and on the continuous erection of new buildings. This status of craftsmen contributed to the evolution of architecture and the plastic arts in Babylon, and the temples and palaces owed their incomparable charm to their talent. As our documentary progresses, we leave behind Hammurabi's reign and traverse centuries, discovering how the Babylonian civilization experienced surges and declines, colliding with foreign invasions, periods of downfall, yet also spectacular revivals. In the ensuing centuries, Babylon remained a spiritual and commercial center, even if its political power wavered. Several Assyrian rulers temporarily imposed their authority on the Babylonian kingdom, yet the city never lost its cultural and religious prestige. Over time, the Babylonians developed advanced scientific knowledge for their era, especially in astronomy and mathematics. It is said that Babylonian astronomers were among the first to create maps of the sky and establish methods for predicting eclipses, sometimes interpreting them from a mystical perspective. They laid the foundations of a sexagesimal system based on the number 60, which we still find today in the division of time and in measuring a circle. Those wise scholars of old taught their disciples to observe rigorously the movements of the stars, to record every variation, and to deduce divine meanings. For the Babylonians, the sky was a window into the will of the gods, and the interpretation of astral signs influenced political decisions and daily life. Beyond these scientific contributions, Babylon was renowned for the grandeur of its architecture. One of the most astonishing monuments was the Gate of the goddess Ishtar. Imagine a complex of thick walls and massive towers, covered with intensely blue glazed bricks, decorated with representations of the god Marduk in dragon form and other mythical creatures. In the desert sunlight, these bricks shone like precious stones, and anyone who stepped through that monumental gate felt as though they entered a sacred sanctuary where the gods could descend among mortals at any time. The Gate of the goddess Ishtar was not just an aesthetic symbol, but also a political message. Behold the power of Babylon. Behold our wealth and devotion to the divine. Through such a portal, which guarded the entrance to the processional way, impressive religious festivals took place, with priests dressed in luxurious garments, with musicians pounding on drums and chanting hymns, and with royalty personified by great kings and queens, accompanied by distinguished generals who greeted the crowds. Behind this splendor lay the rest of the city, with well-crafted streets, bustling markets, workshops where the fires in pottery kilns burned ceaselessly, and the clamor mingled with the spicy scents of Eastern cuisine. Babylonian legends speak of powerful, unpredictable gods, of universes born of chaos, and of heroes who battle supernatural beings. There are fascinating stories of creation, of Tiamat and Marduk, of the primordial confrontation between water and land. These myths circulated throughout Mesopotamia and inspired entire generations of poets, priests, and thinkers. Moreover, some historians believe that Babylonian legends, including the one about the flood, later influenced the religious traditions of other peoples. Besides the cosmogonic myths, a special place in the collective imagination is held by the Tower of Babel. Although this legend is best known from sacred Hebrew texts, many associate the story with one of the impressive ziggurats built in Babylon, symbolizing humankind's ambition to reach God, or, in the Babylonian interpretation, to honor the gods at the highest possible level. This pyramid-shaped structure could pierce the clouds, and priests ascended gradually to draw near to the divine spheres. Such sacred buildings were not only temples, but also genuine cultural centers, where clay tablets with cuneiform inscriptions on religion, astronomy, medicine, or literature were preserved. We now come to one of the most fascinating and debated wonders connected to Babylon, the legendary Hanging Gardens. Ancient sources mention them as the magnificent gardens of Semiramis, or as an offering from King Nebuchadnezzar II to his wife, who yearned for the greenery of her native mountains. The image of these hanging gardens enchanted the imagination of countless travelers and historians of antiquity. They were said to be lofty terraces built in tiers, with astonishing hydraulic engineering that carried Euphrates water to the top and sustained the life of hundreds of species of plants, flowers, and exotic trees. In the midst of the desert, such an explosion of vegetation was not only a triumph of humanity over nature, but also a testament to Babylonian wealth and expertise. Although modern historians still debate whether these gardens truly existed in the form described by ancient sources, their legendary fame has persisted to this day. Whether they were real or mere romantic myths, the Hanging Gardens symbolize the Babylonians' desire to conquer the aridity of their land and to create tiny earthly paradises under the benevolent gaze of the gods. Daily life in Babylon moved at a rapid pace, especially when trade was at its peak. Merchants brought caravans laden with goods, spices, precious stones, silks, rare metals, cosmetic products, and aromatic oils from distant places like Egypt, the Indus Valley, or the shores of the Mediterranean. The Babylonians were known as skillful merchants, and their markets abounded with bargains and exotic objects. In taverns and inns, travelers shared stories of other civilizations, and locals learned about foreign traditions and customs, thus heightening the city's cultural effervescence. Additionally, ceremonies took place daily in the temples, and priests played a major role in maintaining the city's spiritual balance. They interpreted divine signs, performed elaborate rituals, and sacrificed animals to gain the gods' favor. In such a religious society, every aspect of life, from building homes to choosing an auspicious time for sowing, could be influenced by the horoscope set by the astronomical priesthood. Though the hierarchy was clearly established, there were also opportunities for social mobility, especially among artisans and merchants who could increase their wealth and, implicitly, their influence. Nevertheless, at the base of the social pyramid were the slaves, often prisoners of war, who labored on grand construction sites and in the households of the wealthy. In Hammurabi's code, there were also laws concerning master-slave relationships, at times granting the latter certain rights, though never full equality. As we approach the era of Babylon's maximum flourishing, we must pause at the reign of King Nebuchadnezzar II. In the 7th and 6th centuries before Christ, he led Babylon to a spectacular renaissance, elevating it to the status of the most powerful political and cultural center in the region. Victory over the Assyrians and the conquest of Jerusalem are just a few of the military episodes that enhanced his reputation. In this context, the city experienced a massive reconstruction period. New defensive walls, fortifications, and imposing buildings, all intended to strengthen the monarch's prestige and impress foreign ambassadors. Imagine how, in a triumphal ceremony, King Nebuchadnezzar II enters Babylon through the gate of the goddess Ishtar, surrounded by his soldiers to the cheers of the people. The corridors of the city, adorned with golden reliefs, reflect the sun's rays, while priests recite thanksgiving prayers to Marduk, the protector god. Every corner of the city resounds with songs and drumbeats, and the marketplaces quiver with excitement. This was Babylon at its zenith, a moment in which architectural splendor, military might, and commercial wealth converged in a demonstration of power that would remain in the collective memory of all antiquity. But any earthly brilliance comes hand in hand with deep shadows, and Babylon is no exception. After Nebuchadnezzar II's death, internal conflicts and political unrest began to shake the kingdom's stability. Several dynasties succeeded one another in a relatively short time, some supported by priests, others by military aristocrats, and none managed to impose a long-term vision that would maintain its former glory. Added to these internal tensions were external threats from neighboring kingdoms, which had always awaited the chance to subdue Babylon. The Persians, led by King Cyrus the Great, became increasingly powerful and ambitious. Finally, in the 6th century before Christ, they succeeded in conquering Babylon in an almost peaceful manner, according to some ancient accounts, taking advantage of fractures within Babylonian power and the sympathy of certain segments of the population. Thus began a new era in which the city would gradually lose its independence and become part of the Persian Empire. Under Persian rule, Babylon continued to thrive as a commercial and cultural center, yet its political brilliance faded considerably. However, the influence of Babylonian civilization did not abruptly disappear. Religious practices, scientific knowledge, and architectural achievements remained rooted in the spirit of the place and were passed on like a sacred fire still burning intensely. Another blow came when Alexander the Great conquered the Persian Empire, also reaching Babylon. It is said that he was fascinated by the city and intended to make it one of the capitals of his vast empire. Yet his premature death shattered this dream. After Alexander's disappearance, Babylon began to face the gradual loss of geopolitical and economic relevance. The new Seleucid rulers moved the administrative center to other cities, and the population started to migrate. The monumental buildings, once Babylon's pride, became increasingly empty, and over time turned into ruins buried beneath the sand. The causes of Babylon's decline are numerous and often debated by historians. Some underline that uncontrolled flooding and the silting of irrigation canals severely affected agriculture, depriving the city of the food necessary to support a large population. Others insist that the superior military strength of the Persians and later the Macedonians was the decisive factor, as it diminished local initiative and led to the centralization of power in other regions. There is also the theory that internal religious and political conflicts weakened the structure of society, thus favoring conquest and abandonment. At the legendary level, the story of Babylon's fall has inspired countless interpretations, including some linking it to a divine punishment or to a conspiracy of gods betrayed by overly bold mortals. In the vision of certain storytellers of antiquity, Babylon fell because of its pride and excessive luxury, being deserted by deities who felt wronged. This mixture of historical and mythological speculation continues to fuel the imaginations of the curious and of those who dream of the splendor of lost cities. Whatever the reasons for its decline, Babylon remains to this day a fundamental reference when it comes to the evolution of human civilizations. In archaeology, the discovery of its ruins represented one of the most enthralling chapters, and modern excavations have unearthed remnants of walls, temples, and inscriptions that confirm part of its ancient grandeur. Every shard of pottery, every brick inscribed with the name of a king offers precious clues about the way of life, the social organization, the religion, and the mentality of the people of that time. The Babylonian legacy continued to influence humanity's culture over the centuries. Think of the system of measuring time, the interest in astrology and astronomy, the legal codes, the story of the Tower of Babel, and the symbolism of various legendary constructions. The echo of these innovations and myths resonates to this day in literature, art, and even in everyday language when we speak of a Babylonian confusion or of matters pertaining to the complexity of human communication. At the end of our journey, we once again look toward the vastness of the sands that gradually covered the foundations of the Babylonian civilization. The ruins, now silent, seem to be mute witnesses of a story that refuses to vanish. Every buried stone, every burned brick still holds a trace of the glorious aura of bygone times. Despite the passing of so many centuries, the spirit of Babylon seems to endure through our curiosity, through the myths and legends still circulating today, through the archaeologists' thirst to unearth more and more vestiges. The Babylonian civilization was a hotbed of innovation, a spiritual and political center, but also a place where human destiny intertwined with the will of the gods. Raised and overthrown multiple times, this mighty city inspired entire generations to dream of altars that touch the sky, gardens that defy nature, and legal codes that maintain order in a complicated universe. It was at the same time a warning about the fragility of power and about how ambition can lead to both greatness and downfall. Now, in the final frame of the documentary, under twilight's glow, the remaining walls cast long shadows over a reddish earth. The wind whistles, carrying fine sand and whispers of a bygone era. In the distance, silhouettes seem to bring forth the outlines of old temples and palaces, giving us the impression that Babylon never truly died, only hid, waiting for curious souls to explore its secrets. Through the lenses of time, we see it reborn in our stories, in works of art, in academic interpretations, and in literary fantasies. There is nothing left for us but to depart from here, carrying in our hearts a part of the Babylonian civilization's magic. Let us return to the present with respect and wonder for those who, many millennia ago, built such mighty cities, created some of the earliest written codes of law, and dreamed of hanging gardens in the heart of the desert. Babylon reminds us that greatness and decline are two sides of the same coin, that the fate of civilizations can change at any moment, depending on the decisions of kings, the will of the people, or the mysteries of divine plans. And so we end this documentary with an exhortation. Never allow the past to sink into oblivion. Let us rediscover it, honor it, and draw inspiration from it to build a present and a future in which the Babylonians' lessons guide us toward progress and understanding. Likewise, let us not allow the mysteries of vanished cities to remain mere legends, but remain devoted to their research. For every piece of granite brought to light, every deciphered inscription, and every mapped ruin can provide a valuable window into humanity's deeper understanding. The Babylonian civilization, once the shining beacon of an entire epoch, still burns like a symbolic flame in universal culture. In this interplay of history and mythology, it whispers to us that nothing is impossible, neither constructing hanging gardens above waters, nor dreaming of immortality, nor forgetting one's own pride at the risk of losing everything. Under the starry sky, at the confluence of the rivers that gave it life, Babylon's legend persists, calling us to learn more, to marvel, and to be inspired by the splendor of a city that, even after so many millennia, refuses to let its echo fade away.